Hey guys, welcome to Solo ReacTalk. This afternoon I'm going to be reacting to, let's see here, the American Revolution's Forgotten War Crime, US History, made on the Extra History YouTube channel. And this is a request from Anthrax Crab 2222, the request on focusing on the Native American history made on the Extra History YouTube channel. If you guys want to check out my previous reaction to the the Haudenosaunee. Yes, the Haudenosaunee part 1 and part 2 on the Extra History YouTube channel. The link of a card is going to be at the top right here. Yes, I'm just trying to remember where I put it, guys. So yes, if you guys want to check out my reaction to the Haudenosaunee part 1 and part 2, the playlist card is going to be at the top right here. And if you want to check out the original video of the current video that I'm going to be reacting to, the American Revolution Forgotten War Crime, as well as Extra History YouTube channel, the links are going to be in the description below. Okay, let's start. 3. Oh, okay, yes. 3, 2, 1, go.
Outside Janadenhutton, Ohio, March 6th, 1782. While out looking for a stray horse, a young man named Joseph Shibosh comes across an unexpected sight. A group of drenched men,
How do you spell Shibosh? Okay. Yeah.
strangers have just swum across the river, and they're armed. Recognizing them as Pennsylvanian militia, no friend of native people, Shibosh turns to run back to Janadenhutton. He has to warn his friends and family. A musket ball shatters Shibosh's arm. Moaning, he drags himself into the bushes, but the militia drag him back out.
Why did they shoot him? He was running away. He was no threat to them.
Shibosh pleads for his life, saying he was just looking for his horse. He also tells them that he's part white. His father is a preacher who ministers to the native village.
So if you're part white, they won't kill you? If you're part white, they won't hurt you? If you're part white, you are far more secure than being a Native American. The world that he lived in, Joseph.
But it's no use. The militia beat him to death, scalp him, and leave his mutilated body by the roadside.
Scalp. I think I know what that means. Scalping, or they scalped him. But I just want to make sure. Should I say scalping? Scalping is the act of cutting or tearing a part of human scalp with the hair attached from the head, and generally occurred in warfare, with the scalp being a trophy. Oh gosh, and the pictures I'm seeing here. Wow. This poor man, Joseph.
No one will warn the peaceful villagers of Janadenhutton. Prejudice and death will arrive unannounced. Want to see the first episode of our new Napoleon in Egypt series immediately after watching this episode 2 full weeks early? Well, with Nebula First, you can. Learn how after the episode. The American Revolution was a murky and deeply violent conflict, though that particular aspect of it is often removed from American films and textbooks in a quest for a more palatable narrative of its founding.
That is a big mistake. That is creating fallacy. That's creating a dream. War is terrible. War is a conflict that consumes everybody. Whether it's for revolution or independence or fighting against another country, all of it must be told. All sides to it. I don't know why do the American government and businesses and people, choose to suppress such information, especially about, how horrible the war for independence or revolution was for some groups of people, like the Native Americans. This is very vital information that should never be suppressed, should never be covered up. It's important to know about these events so that we do not repeat the same mistakes, so that we do not support nations that do these types of heinous acts as well.
But we're not going to do that here today. So in the interest of countering that sanitized version of history, just be aware that this episode is going to be more violent and emotionally charged than usual. So with that in mind, please take care of yourself, and viewer discretion is advised. During the American...
I'm already angry. Hey, I'm already angry. After that small little snippet there with Joseph Shebosh and what he had to go through, to the lengths that he had to take in order to protect his life, where he had to tell them that I'm half white so that they don't kill him, that my father is a priest, don't kill me. I'm already starting to get angry.
Revolution, the regular armies of both Crown and Congress committed massacres upon one another. During clashes like Poloi Tavern, Old Tapan, and Waxhaws, for example, British soldiers engaged in excessive bloodshed against the defeated Continental Army. Similarly, at Haw River and in the aftermath of the Battle of Kings Mountain, revolutionary forces showed little hesitation when killing prisoners of war, especially when those surrendering were Americans still loyal to Britain. But all of those incidents were military-on-military violence, often committed during or just after combat. And in some cases, the line between successful military operation and massacre could be a blurred one, with the defeated crying foul while the victors claimed they did nothing beyond the rules of war. The
Rules of war. Right.
Revolutionaries in particular were excellent at covering up military failings with accounts of British brutality, winning the propaganda war, and attracting sympathy and recruits. There were times, however, when this extreme violence did spill over beyond the battlefield. Civilians, whether pro-revolution, loyalist, or neutral, suffered a great deal during the war, from theft and forced eviction to assault and rape. Though it should be noted that cases of civilians being outright killed were thankfully rare, there were exceptions, the worst of which ranks as the bloodiest and most brutal massacre of the American Revolution. Now, overall, Native American tribes arguably drew the shortest of many short straws in the conflict. Faced with siding either with King George or the rebelling American colonists, most chose to back the British.
It doesn't matter who you choose, you're still going to be stabbed in the back. Whether you choose the British or you choose the Americans, it doesn't matter. Eventually, after they have ended this war of theirs, the United States of America are going to expand. They're going to trample anyone that gets in their way. And that's especially being done to the Native Americans. There is no friend here. There is no alliance here. There is nothing. But out of survival, they had no choice.
But many others, such as the Lenape tribe, tried to remain neutral and avoid the war altogether. In fact, the Lenape's trouble actually predated the revolution.
Lenape tribe.
And in the wake of the French and Indian War, many were forced to move west and settle in Ohio. Among these displaced Lenape were a subset who had converted to a denomination of Czech Protestantism called the Moravian Church.
Moravian Church.
Which preached a strict adherence to pacifism. These villages, which colonists referred to as Moravian Indians or Christian Indians, had actually already come into conflict with American colonists when they'd resisted pressure to join the French and Indian War. And when the revolution broke out, some Moravians thought that now residing outside of the colonies might actually help keep them safe, but they were sadly mistaken. because it turned out that the Lenape's new home put them in the middle of no man's land between the Revolution's frontier headquarters at Fort Pitt and the British garrison at Fort Detroit. Finally forced to pick sides, the wider Lenape tribe split between the British and revolutionaries, while the Moravian faction, hewing to their pacifist beliefs, refused to take up arms for either side. Tragically, rather than this removing them from the conflict, it simply meant that the Moravians now became targets for both factions.
Whether they joined whichever faction or whether they tried to stay neutral, it wouldn't have really helped, because this war is going to consume everybody.
In September of 1781, natives allied to the British forced the Moravians to move their settlement closer to Detroit, where the British could keep an eye on them and ensure they weren't aiding the revolutionaries. However, once that was implemented, food began to run out, and then to avoid the possibility of the Moravians starving, the British permitted them to return to their original villages. These movements, unsurprisingly, convinced revolutionaries that the Moravians were secretly aiding the British, so in March of 1782, a force of revolutionary frontier militia from Pennsylvania marched on the Moravian village of Gnadenhutten.
So they don't have concrete evidence that the Moravian Indians are, joining forces with the British. They don't have any evidence whatsoever. It's just guesswork.
Brutally murdering the first Moravian they encountered, Joseph Shibash. Upon arriving at Gnadenhutten, after the militiamen trampled the Moravians' crops, they told the villagers that they were here to help, claiming that their mission was to move the village to Fort Pitt in order to protect them from the British.
Right.
The Moravians then fed them and agreed to give up what few weapons they possessed, and after the militia gathered more Moravians from a neighboring village, they then revealed their true intention. First, they bound the Moravians and separated the men from the women and children, confining them in separate houses. Then that evening, in an ironic reflection of their revolutionary beliefs, the 160 militiamen held a vote on whether or not to kill their captives. Only 18 voted against the measure.
In what sort of mind? How do you come to the mind process? How do you come to the process of voting to kill people? How do you come to that type of thought process? Voting to kill people.
When the militia informed the Moravians of their decision, they found the natives still unwilling to resist, their only request being that the militia give them the night to...
How can they resist when they're already tied up? How can they do anything now? It's too late.
Prepare themselves for death, to which the militia agreed. So as the Moravians spent their last hours praying and singing hymns, the militiamen looted their homes and got drunk on stolen communion wine. Then when the sun rose, the killing began. March 8th, 1782. As the bound Moravians pray, the militia enter the two buildings and without pause begin to commit murder. The frontiersmen use mallets, hatchets, and knives, pulverizing skulls and then scalping their victims, regardless of age or gender. And throughout it all, the helpless Moravians continue to say prayers, some even asking God to forgive their killers even as they lay dying.
No. I don't know, why did you guys do that? I'm even suspecting that this didn't really happen. Where the Moravians would ask their God to forgive their murderers. I can't accept that. I cannot accept that. They can be pacifist, but they are not. I don't accept that they would do something like that. How can you ask your God to forgive the people who are killing your family members right in front of you? Who are killing your entire community? And you ask your God to forgive them?
But the militia showed them no mercy. Men, women, children were all indiscriminately bludgeoned and scalped before the bodies were dumped into the mission building. Afterward, they torched the village. And there are accounts of this. One militiaman, Nathan Rollins, whose father and uncle were killed by a different native tribe, personally slaughters 19 Moravians.
This person doesn't care that the Moravians are a different Indian tribe. He doesn't care. In his racist mindset, they're all the same. They're Indians.
Then afterward, he sits down and, weeping, admits that it was no satisfaction for the loss of his father and uncle at all.
Well, of course it's not any satisfaction, you idiot. Killing other people to try and soothe your pain after losing your own family members doesn't help, doesn't make sense, doesn't give you any joy. Hate begets hate. Yeah, hate begets hate. The cycle of hatred is so easy to start and not easy to end.
Another account recalls how the, quote, dreadful work of human slaughter continued until every prayer and moan and sigh was hushed in the stillness of death. In total, 28 men, 29 women, and 39 children were murdered. Only 2 children, one of whom had been scalped, actually survived. One played dead before slipping away, while the other hid in a cellar before escaping the burning building. One of the few militiamen who'd refused to take part in the killings later adopted one of these survivors. Now, as news...
Yeah, that sounds nice. He was adopted. But this loss, it's tremendous. It's inconquerable.
Of the massacre spread, some colonial Americans denounced the act. However, most either voiced no opinion or backed the actions of the militia, and no criminality or wrongdoing was ever assigned to the killers.
Yeah, because, they don't really see Native Americans as human beings. They don't. They don't see them as their equal. They don't see them as fellow human beings that deserve the right to live in their own way of life and in their own existence. They don't see them that way. They see them as barbarians. Because I can tell you now, if these people were of a different race, their white race, it would be a different story altogether. They might even be protesting on the streets, demanding that there should be answers given on what happened in that community. That charges should be laid on those militiamen who acted on this heinous activity in that community. But because these people are not white.
Benjamin Franklin summed up the attitude when he wrote of his infinite pain and vexation on the matter, whilst still laying the blame upon King George.
He didn't have any infinite pain about what has happened to this community. This is just a political ploy.
However, despite his supposed regret for the massacre itself, Franklin was also printing false newspaper articles claiming that the British paid Native American bounties for colonial scalps, stories that encouraged violence toward Native peoples. And though the siege of Yorktown in 1781 had ended major fighting on the eastern seaboard, the revolutionary conflict on the frontiers continued and actually became worse in late 1782 and 1783. Word of the events at Hutton encouraged natives to take up arms and mount retaliatory strikes. Incidents of torturing and killing prisoners increased, and one captured Continental Army officer, William Crawford, falsely accused of being present during the massacre, was beaten, shot, mutilated, and scalped before being killed.
Yet again, no evidence whatsoever that this person was there during that massacre. No evidence at all. just an excuse to kill. Hate begets hate. And these are the types of information and history that it should be drilled into American minds. The cost of conflict, the cost of hate. It should never be suppressed. It should never be erased. It should never be put aside because it's uncomfortable. It has to be uncomfortable. You have to endure it. You have to understand so that you do not repeat, so that you do not support other nations that commit these types of acts.
While 1783 marked the formal end of the American Revolution, native tribes continued the struggle as the United States focused its efforts on Western expansion. Violent frontier conflicts with the new republic continued throughout the 1780s and 90s, many of which fed in part by the memory of the slaughter at Gnadenhutten. Today, figures like George Washington, Alexander Hamilton, or events like the Siege of Yorktown occupy the front and center of American historical memory, whereas killings like Gnadenhutten or the many other frontier murders and massacres during the Revolution are often forgotten or at best relegated to footnotes. But doing that is an egregious mistake, because the birth of the United States cannot truly be understood unless it's viewed in its entirety, and that does include its uglier truths. In fact, it's the parts of history that people wish had never happened that are often the parts that need to be the most keenly remembered, because otherwise, the stories we tell ourselves about the origins of our current world risk becoming mere comforting fables, rather than being the important and just deeply culturally expensive lessons that we can all learn from so that these same mistakes are never made again.
Exactly.
I mean, that's a huge part in why we feel it's necessary to create episodes like the one you just watched in the first place, even though there's always a very real chance that they'll be demonetized due to their subject matter. But thankfully, we can more confidently take these swings as a studio, since we no longer are totally beholden to the YouTube algorithm and know our episodes will always play without restrictions over on Nebula. Actually, with the help of a bunch of our creator friends, we just ramped up an awesome new feature over there called Nebula First. Basically, it works like this. Thanks to the support from Nebula, we can produce and release our Extra History series episodes on Nebula at least a full week before they get posted to YouTube. However, this time round, we are super excited to announce that you can actually go watch the first episode of our brand new Napoleon in Egypt Extra History series 2 whole weeks early, right now. The French invasion of Egypt in 1798 is sometimes treated like a sideshow in the Napoleonic Wars, just one of many rungs in a ladder that helped Napoleon to power while inventing Egyptology as a byproduct. But this view is vastly underselling it as an event. It's not only frequently cited as the first modern colonialist project, it will also set some patterns that will look all too familiar to the more modern Western interventions in the Middle East. And that is just the beginning. You also get a ton of other great Nebula First content from creators like Jacob Geller, Mariana Vieira, Legal Eagle, and more, all posting their videos earlier than you'd see them on YouTube. Ooh, and one of the other Nebula First shows I can't get enough of is the globe-trotting giant that is Jetlag Race Till the End of the World. It is literally the coolest travel game show, and I cannot wait to see how Season 5 wraps up. If you haven't seen it yourself yet, you are seriously missing out. Go Team Sam and Toby, I believe in you! Plus, that's on top of the other exclusive shows we've done over there, and the Nebula classes that Jeff and I both made, which honestly, we are super proud of. I can't wait to hear what y'all think of those. Now, Nebula is normally priced at a pretty darn reasonable $50 a year, but if you sign up using our link below, you'll get Nebula for only $2.50 a month when you sign up for an annual plan. Oh, and I did the math so you don't have to. That's around 40% off the regular price, which is mwah, chef's kiss. Look, I could go on and on about all the amazing content on Nebula, but I really feel like it's something you should experience for yourself because it's kind of changed the way that I watch most of my stuff on the internet these days. Not to mention using our link to sign up really does help support myself and the rest of the EC crew make the content you love, while also helping us not be entirely dependent on YouTube for our livelihoods. That's a part I definitely like. Thank you truly so much for that, and I hope to see you over on Nebula real soon because I really think you're going to enjoy it. What if I told you that Ahmed Ziad Turk, Angela Valenciana, Arclight Games, Casey Mustia, Dominic Valenciana, Joseph Blame, Kuya Koi, and Skylar Holmes were all legendary patrons? I'm not kidding.
I would like to thank Extra History for making this video. I hope a lot of Americans get to watch this video, whether on Nebula or on YouTube, wherever. I hope this very important information and history in the American Revolution is preserved and it is shown to as many people as possible. And many other informations that have been suppressed or that have been erased or tried to be erased in American history books or their education system. Because a revolution is not just some sort of heroic act. It can be bloody. It can take life. And sometimes it's not the life of your enemies, it's the life of the innocent people that are taken. Really, I don't know why this sort of information has been suppressed, but I do hope that more Americans are able to learn about this so that they don't go back down that path. They don't repeat the same mistakes. They don't support nations that commit these sort of atrocities. That they make sure that their government understands that we will not support any notion of a campaign of extermination on another group of human beings. We will not support that. We have gone through that ourselves in our history, and we don't want to repeat it. That should be something that we should be hearing from the American public more, stronger, more focused. And this sort of history will contribute to that, I think. It will contribute to Americans realizing how important that you know all the facets, all the sides of a conflict, not just the heroic figures of the revolution, not just the grand picture of it, the colonies fighting against Britain. There's so many other stories that haven't been told, that have been suppressed, and this is one of them. Yeah. Anthrax Scribe 2222, thank you for the request. Extra History, thank you for the video. I'm a bit angry right now, but this needed to be seen. This needed to be seen by me, and hopefully, many more Americans. Especially, I'm focusing on the Americans because this is your history. I'm hoping that you guys watch these types of videos on Extra History. You need this. You definitely need this. Now more than ever, I would say. Yeah. Alright. That's it. Guys, remember, if you want to check out my previous reaction to other Extra History videos, the playlist card is going to be at the top right here. If you want to check out the original video as well as Extra History's YouTube channel, the links are going to be in the description below. If you like my reaction, give it a like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. Click on the notification bell if you want to be up to date with my latest videos. And I'll see you guys hopefully next week as I continue with the Native American history on the Extra History YouTube channel. Yes. Okay. Bye-bye.